David, you know something? I look at this cigar and I'm in love with this wrapper, the Ecuador Sumatra wrapper. And I think a lot of us take for granted all of the senses that are involved when smoking a cigar or even looking at a cigar or thinking about smoking a cigar. I think one of the senses that we use at first is the visual, right? So you see it on the shelf, or you see it, on an ashtray, or you see it on a table, and you know you're going to smoke it, and you kind of probably already start salivating a little bit, like, oh, I know what that's going to feel like. I'll be honest with you, that happens to me with the Carrillo Maduro. I'm actually scared to look at it. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, I just smoked right now. I don't want another one. But the Ecuador Sumatra is very visually appealing. The reddish-brown wrapper. The wrapper actually is grown in a cloudy area in Ecuador that makes it, with limited sunlight, that makes it very conducive to this silky, like medium textured wrapper. Makes it very attractive and gives it some very special qualities. My dad was talking to me a little bit about that, this being one of his favorite wrappers. Yep. I think also the sounds, in smoking, the lighter, when it's lighting the cigar, and it just when you smoke, you inhale sometimes, you can actually
which
hear
I just
all those
did.
sounds,
I kind of coughed a little bit when I did it, but we talked before on a video real quick about the tactile part of, beyond, the tactile part and the senses beyond just your palate.
Yeah.
Your dad all the time talks about aroma, the aroma of a cigar. When you're in a lounge full of smokers, there's sometimes that one cigar that stands out and you're like, oh wow, something smells really great in here, and it's a cigar, that it's there. The visual side of it, the touch that we do when we take the cello off and we feel the wrapper and feel the cigar itself, the noise of lighting it, the part of the kind of all your senses working together on that first puff, seeing the first puff of smoke out of your mouth, all that, it all plays a role, and it's all part of the experience of being with a cigar. And I think that's really kind of something that when you're in this business the way we are, you start to forget, and you sort of need to sometimes unplug yourself and go back to that, because it makes you appreciate not only what we make, but also just the whole industry and everything that goes into a cigar.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the smoke, the ash, all of these things that, like you said, we just take for granted. So, David, the most important, I guess, sense to a lot of people is taste.
Absolutely.
And you are on our taste panel, our in-house expert. A lot of people have seen some of your videos, some of your reviews, and some of the podcasts you're doing. So I guess I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what a smoker should expect when they try an Carrillo Sumatra. I guess with the aroma, you were mentioning to me the other day that you're smelling woodsy, leathery, right? And sometimes it's hard to describe what does leathery mean, but it's as simple as kind of that smell, like sometimes when you have a leather jacket on, or you sit on a sofa and it's that smell that exudes out of there, and then you kind of just get used to it. Yeah. And I could definitely see how that's happening here, just right now when you and I are smoking. Now, what are you thinking about the taste of this Ecuador Sumatra?
So, I find kind of 4 parts of it that I notice a lot. I get a nuttiness kind of along the lines of an almond. It has a sweetness to it. The sweetness is a little more subtle. We have other cigars that the sweetness is more prominent from the natural tobaccos. The sweetness here is not what I would define as like a dulce de leche or a super sweet. It's more like that brown sugar, but sort of a sprinkling of it. Yep. I pick up the 2 prominent notes for me is I pick up, a milk chocolate kind of cocoa type approach, and a pepperiness. But the pepperiness is a little more, which is weird because, everybody goes back and forth. What's more peppery, black pepper or white pepper? To me, this is more white pepper, which is a little more delicate in my palate. Other people flip, but I see a little bit more of a delicate pepperiness. And as we know, your dad can make some really peppery cigars.
Yeah, it's
you know,
definitely, it's
but
definitely a little bit
balance
delicate.
of the profiles on this, of the flavors in this, in the profile is incredible. You
It's
know,
going really well with this coffee. I'm picking up some coffee notes as well. So I have another question for you. What do you like to pair Ecuador Sumatra wrappers with? For example, right here it's working great with this espresso that I'm having. What do you like to pair it with?
it depends on my mood. You know, this wrapper, this specific cigar, and the funny thing is, you know, you talk about a Sumatra wrapper. And one thing that's important to remember is that this series that we created is all about the wrapper. So it's really to enhance what the wrapper is about, and the fillers and the binder are working to enhance
Exactly,
that versus the traditional way of making a cigar, which is everything melds together for a goal. So in this particular cigar, obviously I think coffee would be great. I would probably put this with more of a, you know, on the beer side, I think I would probably do more like a good lager or a, you know, even a Pilsner. I don't know if I would go heavy with this because I think the heaviness would overpower the flavor profile. So I wouldn't do a stout, you know, I wouldn't do a porter, but, you know, something along that line, something crisp to enhance this. When it comes to a bourbon or whiskey, or even a rum, I wouldn't go overly sweet. I'd go something very clean, you know, very smooth.
What are some of your recommendations, I guess, that are just more easy? I know that you are an aficionado, and that's a very special bourbon and scotch and whiskey, but what do you think just more readily available options would be for something like this?
So one of the ones that I like a lot, and it's actually neither of the two I mentioned, it's a rye. There's two ryes I like, and they're very similar. There's a Redemption rye, which is finished in Caribbean casks, which I think that would go really well because it would enhance the slight sweetness you pick up on this because the Caribbean cask is sweet, but it's not overly sweet. And then if you wanted to enhance a little more of the chocolate and sweet notes, I would do the Angel's Envy rye. For a whiskey, I would probably pick an Islay, which is super smooth, you know, or a Speyside. An Islay, I would be on the southern side. I wouldn't get overly peaty on it, but something that doesn't have a lot of peat. And man, a bourbon, I'm the worst person to ask bourbons because I haven't gotten into all the newer bourbons that are out there. But again, I would try to find something that would be more on that smooth, very well balanced, something that doesn't maybe have a high ABV and doesn't burn, because I think that would fight with the flavors in here. You know, ultimately this cigar is so well balanced in the way it is, you don't want something that's going to throw that off. So it's got to be almost a like kind for a like kind in this scenario. Funny thing is, you know, something super, you know, I know this is not normal and it's not something I drink a lot, but I think about this like, you know, a Chardonnay, a white Chardonnay,
Okay.
or even a like a simple Brut or, you know, Prosecco or a Champagne. The bubbles on this, I think would just make it intensify the flavors of the cigar a lot. You know,
like
in
that
thinking
you're-
about that just now. So
Yeah, no, I like that you're exploring wines and sparkling wines as well, because that's not something that usually we talk about. So I guess I have another question for beginners.
yeah.
When we talk about taste, you know, a lot of times you'll see taste profile and then the strength profile and the taste profile. And you know, a lot of times you'll see it's either medium or mild, full, and then everything in between. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between those two characteristics?
So I describe it this way. For me, strength is based off of the retrohale. It's when you blow the smoke out of your mouth, or out of your nose, excuse me, and how that affects the body itself. So when you can take the smoke in your mouth and blow it out your nose and you don't feel a thing, that's a mild cigar. When it drops a tear, that's a full cigar. And then just do the spectrum in between. The flavor profile is different because with a flavor profile, I don't when someone says full flavored, what they really mean is it's super complex. So the full flavored means there's a lot of flavors going on. They're rich, they're strong, they're in your face. When someone says it's mild flavored, it's really more of a mild cigar. But the funny thing is, I could tell you, you can have the opposites exist. So you can have a strong cigar that's mild in its flavor profile. You can have a mild cigar that's full in its flavor profile. And they do happen to exist out there. But most people don't retrohale. So they equate one and the same.
Okay.
So
what do you recommend for someone that doesn't? Like most people.
Like most people, I think.
How will you know how to describe that?
Well, what I do is for someone who's a novice.
I think mild is easy, right? I think most people can say, okay, mild, I get it. But what about when you're going into that medium full or full versus medium, mild medium? I think it's those ranges that kind of are a little bit trickier for beginners.
Yeah. And I think what it boils down to is I think for the novice beginner smoker, one, I recommend that you try everything. Don't be afraid to try a cigar. One thing, and we've talked about this before, one thing that a lot of people do is they don't know when they start getting the nicotine fits. They don't know the cure for it. The cure for it is pure sugar. So Coca-Cola, a pack of sugar, a candy, something sweet will help with that nausea, nicotine shakes. Slow your smoke down when you're trying a cigar you don't know. Don't smoke it super fast. But I equate everything to food and to what you drink. So if you're someone who likes spicy and likes strong high ABV stuff and likes, a more full flavored approach in your eating and drinking habits, you're going to like a more full flavored cigar. If you tend to be more bland and you like, chicken and rice and you like bland food, you're probably not going to want to smoke a Pledge. Mm-hmm. You're probably going to want to smoke something more like the Sumatra or our New Wave Connecticut or Allegiance or something like that. Just because it's not that it's bland, but it's not going to overpower you by any means. And the flavors in it are more subtle until you become more of an expert to be able to start seeing the nuances within those flavors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, we hope that you guys enjoyed our sensory conversation here and can try any Carrillo Sumatra. By the way, leave any comments, any questions that you might have for us. We're always welcoming all kinds of feedbacks and any other videos you might like us to make for you guys. Just let us know in the comments. We look at it ourselves, so
Yep. Thank you.
Stay tuned for more.